Eliminating boundaries between architecture and music. Myself, Raiza Zainul. Music is a complex organization of sounds harmonizing together to produce a single composition. Out of the five senses that human beings possess, vision is typically the most developed, while hearing is one of the least. Since visual oriented environment is stronger and considered more, we pay less attention to sound and its nature. Similarly, the act of designing in architecture is complex yet harmonious space of organization to produce a line of work. It is evident that the study and certain systematic pathway while designing helps the designer to attain quality works. Since both the fields of art have a path to reach, they may surely coincide at points before the final outcome. In this chapter, we look on to the need for the study. Where is the boundary between music and architecture? This question makes us assume the existence of a boundary. This essay is an attempt to answer this question. Music and architecture has always seemed to be two different concepts, yet combined by art. This boundary line between these streams of art makes it two extreme ends of a concept, while there are similarities within them that collide on the same note. The basic need for research is to eliminate the boundary drawn between architecture and music. The research questions are: how does constructing an architectural design and framing music structure relate? Under this research question, there comes the sub-research question: what are the different ways in which music and architecture relate to each other? How does music influence architecture and vice versa? The next question is how architectural experience of a space is explored in terms of music. The aim of the study is to achieve a relationship between the working process of music with the designing process of architecture. Objectives are to understand the relation between music and architectural elements by applying principles that relates to the building elements, a language of space and form to produce emotionally responsive architecture that relates to the way music translates an emotion or an idea through the composition, harmony, or any other principles of design. Exploring the relationship formed by the principles of creating architectural design and music piece is another objective. That is, through the way each of them makes use of the instrumental concepts they appeal to from their own perspective. Interactions between space, people, and music, experiments from nature, and derivations deduced to achieve relationship between space and music is another objective. Architects are making all their efforts to produce easiest and quicker ways to create comfortable architectural spaces. It is observed that the successful architecture is in beautiful formation has contained musical symphonies. The scope of this research is to access the relationship between music and architecture in their respective forms. Since the basic element and the core part of the topic is a non-tangible form of art, picturized demonstration is provided rarely. Literature review is done by collecting the information from books as well as from websites. Literature review is done considering the common factors in that of an architectural design as well as a musical piece. They are divided into three parts: elements of design in architecture and music, principles of design in architecture and music, production of an architectural design and a musical piece. The books referred has been noted respectively. In this chapter, the concept of how music and architecture have similarities while designing will be explored. As both the fields are large to have a study in depth, elements of design that connects music and architecture is considered the initial step to start with. The principles and the elements of design are a guide for an architect to use elements of design in a composition. The principles of design include balance, contrast, emphasis, movement, proportion, hierarchy, repetition, rhythm, pattern, unity, variety, and white space. These principles of design work together to create an aesthetically pleasing work and improves user experience. Music is an art form that includes science and maths, that is, physics of sound waves and metered beats and measures respectively. Principles of design describe how elements are used properly in all situations while designing. There are several stages of studying, preparations, handovers, polishing, and approval in any field of work. There are many people that work on a product throughout its production lifetime. The process of framing a music is no less similar to that of building a house. Elements of design as well as principles of design plays an equal role in building a design and composing a music. They might be different subjects, but the final product of both music and architecture takes the same route to reach the outcome. The initial step taken to reach the conclusion becomes more intact when literature review is done. As evident from the literature review, architecture and music share a similar path to reach an outcome, but unfortunately, the huge potential for combining the two fields of art, music, and architecture, respectively, is not considered well enough due to lack of studies based on the topics. The existing studies on these topics or related topics are limited to single category. Music and architecture are both split up by the outcomes, but the process through which a music composer or an architect travel coincides at 3 points. The flow chart here shows how the journey study goes. Methodology involves understanding the relationship between music and architecture through the principles and elements of design. Secondly, existing examples and study of architecture adding music as a parameter for designing spaces. Thirdly, analysis of the building context and techniques used in bringing up a relationship between music and architecture. The next chapter is result. One among the few case studies is John Cage's As Slow as Possible. He invented compositions using the interplay of chance and order. His idea was that a composition always imitated nature. As Slow as Possible is world's longest music concert. His works always involved ideas of control and randomness to his process of work. The next chapter is result. One among the few case studies is John Cage's As Slow as Possible. He invented compositions using the interplay of chance and order. His idea was that a composition always imitated nature. As Slow as Possible is world's longest music concert. His works always involved ideas of control and randomness to his process of work. Stretto house. This is another type of representation of music being involved in architecture. The house weaves throughout the surrounding layered landscape. Stephen Hole's design was parallelly formed by a musical piece called Music for Strings, Percussion and Celestra by Bela Bartok. This piece is broken down into four movements, just as the Stretto House is. Indian Music Experience, a musical museum with the help of an architectural design. The IME is dedicated to the advancement of understanding and appreciating the Indian music from the traditional to the contemporary style. The IME will bring together the best expertise to create an experience that engages, educates, and entertains the participant through exhibits, learning activities, and performances. Thematic gallery, interactive installations, sound garden are the main attractions of Indian musical experience. The sound garden features installations such as wind chimes, tubular bells, gongs, reeds, etc., made of wood, steel, and similar materials, which introduce visitors to the principles of sound. Everybody can make music in the sound garden. Just by stepping on a singing stone, sit on a musical bench, or touch on a gong, everyone can make music. This museum brings together generations of music into one experience and variety of platforms to connect with music through innovative design of physical spaces. The next chapter is discussion. The subtopic that comes under discussion is Ioannis Xenakis' mathematical formula. He projected this formula both on time and space. The mathematical proportions are translated into music and architecture. Xenakis used the mathematics as a generator of creativity. Ioannis Xenakis explored rhythmic patterns, and his inspiration was the numerical proportion he had used in the orchestral work Lay Sacrifice. He tried to give a facade a rhythm using a direct translation of the rhythm of the musical piece. This concept led to be a boring and predictable division of windows. He replaced rhythm with density. In the facade, this led to window millions that are at times closer and other times further. This allowed Xenakis to give himself the poetic freedom to play with the rhythm. Figure A and B shows the mathematical graphs drawn by Ioannis Xenakis. There are four layers of sound in space. The first layer of sound in space explored was density. The second layer of sound in space is structure and organization. The third layer of sound in space is the material. The fourth layer of the sound in space is emotional interpretations. Figure A shows the structure and organization of a space that defines sound. Figure B shows density of a space which also includes sound. Figure C shows materials that actually absorb sound. Talking about the material of sound, musical instruments are constructed in many different forms in order to produce a variety of sounds. Both musicians and architects use their material to evoke different emotional response. Sound plays an important role in music and architecture. The impact of sound has to be considered by the designers or composers so as to touch the inner soul of the listener or the user. Musical terms such as rhythm, texture, harmony, proportion, and articulation refer both to architecture and to music. Rhythm in music is patterns of sound in relation to a beat. Musical texture refers to layers of sounds and rhythms produced by different instruments. Architectural texture appears in different materials. Harmony is balance of sound or composition and balance of parts together. Proportion is relationship between parts. In music, it is distance between notes or intervals. Dynamics is the quality of action in music or in buildings, facades, or mass. The art of music shows an interaction between the taste and sensitive affections of both the composer and the listener. Therefore, music can be defined as an emotion case affecting one person who uses his talent to translate it to a musical art. To conclude, I would like to quote Mr. Jacob Wurthuis. It is not the sound or a material that belongs either to architecture or music. It is the use that is made of it in experience that determines the distinction.